Welcome back, everybody, to the final regular season edition of the College Weekend Wrap-Up. I am Vinny Servino, the college supervisor at Perfect Game USA. Joining me has been my friend my co-captain throughout this whole season of college baseball, Jeremy Brown. How the hell are you?
Oh, Vin, I know for you it's been a long year, but we've made it. Now you get to do all the postseason stuff that comes with the regular season, but I'll be here for you, and we're going to get through it, I promise.
So normally we talk about what happened in the week, some of the storylines, that sort of thing. But when we were talking about this show, we decided to say, let's scrap that. Let's talk about the season on the whole as we head into conference championship week. Jeremy, there were some things that happened this weekend, some final games, and we got major winners in each of the Power 5 conferences. What kind of stood out to you most about maybe one of those winners or one of the series you saw this weekend, and kind of how that translates to the conference tourneys?
Prior to the weekend, you and I talked about what things I need to watch for in case I had to host a show since you were on the road. You go Florida, Arkansas. That's the series you need to lock in on. And you're like, Arkansas is going to take it. I go, I think Florida might be able to pull it off then, or at least get 2 or 3. And I was wrong, wholeheartedly wrong. Arkansas took the series, swept them, and that kind of leads me into something we were talking about before with the Golden Spikes. And can Kevin Kopps, a reliever, win the Golden Spikes this year? There hasn't been a pitcher in college baseball since 2011 that won it. Both A.J. Reed and Brendan McKay both did win it as 2 ways. You even can go down the list and it's starting pitcher, Strasburg, Bauer. Kopps' numbers are that of a starter. He's 10-0, 0.75 ERA, 97 strikeouts in 60 innings, 15 walks, 158 batting average against. You go down and it's like video game numbers.
I think my point with Kopps, I think when you talk about these major awards, is that he's been the most important Met player on the best team in the country. I think that has to mean something in certain regards.
Yeah, you always think it's going to be a big bat that wins it, kind of like a quarterback winning the Heisman. But when you look at what Kopps has done for Arkansas, knowing Van Horn can go to him 2 innings, 3 innings out twice a weekend to nail it down, it's like, well, that's your guy. That's why we're retaining number 1 week after week. So I just wanted to throw that out there, stir the pot a little bit, and see what other people have thought of it. But
so what you're telling me is that Kevin Kopps is Dave Van Horn's Devonta Smith? Right,
correct.
Of course. We'll talk about the Golden Spikes. There's some other players, too, that we wanted to mention a little bit, guys, that kind of at least have caught our eye. 2 sluggers that I wanted to talk about with over 20 home runs are Jace Jung and Matt Nelson of Texas Tech and Florida State, respectively. Jace Jung, we've talked about before. He's been one of the top sophomores in the entire country, big left-handed power. Younger brother of Rangers first-round pick Josh, but he's a different animal in his own right. He has, I think, 10 or 11 more walks and strikeouts on the year. Texas Tech is one of the more feared offenses in the league, and he's the head of that. And Matt Nelson is a guy who was left off the original Golden Spikes finalist list, and Florida State fans were uproarious on Twitter. And all Matt Nelson has done then is ascend to the national home run leader with 2 more this past weekend, so he's up to 22 total. He's hitting .366 with 22 bombs and 51 RBIs, and just kind of the resurgence of a guy from last year who was kind of like a 6th or 7th or 8th round guy in a 5-round draft to coming back and kind of proving it wrong, and now maybe being a 1st, 2nd, 3rd round guy. That's been one of the storylines for me too, is guys that really have improved their draft stock as the seasons went on. And I think when you're talking about guys like that, you got to start with him.
You nailed it on the head too. It's a perfect segue into our next thing with the shortened draft last year being only 5 rounds. You got guys like Matt Nelson. You got guys like Matt Mikulski, who we talked about briefly prior to the show, who has like 126 punch outs and half the amount of innings. And at Fordham, he's on the Golden Spikes watch list. That maybe scouts are like, well, maybe we should have popped them in the top 5 rounds. But they're also showing things they hadn't shown prior. So they're taking advantage of this extra year. But with that shortened draft, we also saw an influx of blue chip freshmen coming onto campus. And that's another area we wanted to talk on because college baseball is so rich this year in freshman talent, in the fresh blood. I'll let you start with a couple of guys that you liked, then I'll finish with a couple that I like. And I mean, everybody already knows these names, but it's fun to rehash them and just project what they're going to be a couple years down the road.
Yeah, and most of the guys we're going to talk about here, are top 10 guys on our 2022 and 2023 college draft list, which recently came out last couple of weeks over on perfectgame.org. I won't steal your thunder from former PG Select Festival Dylan Cruz, who has just been setting the world on fire with the Tigers. But, a personal favorite of mine that we've mentioned for a while is Enrique Bradfield, and he's on his way to 50 stolen bags in the SEC, which is just previously unheard of, hitting close to 360, 370, 380 in the conference. Right there at the top of the lineup. It's been freakishly good. And then talk about two big sluggers in Brock Wilken at Wake Forest and Caden Grice over at Clemson. Brock Wilken just recently tied the Wake Forest freshman record for home runs with the 17th over the weekend. And what really stands out about Wilken is that he's not striking out either. If you read my report on him from earlier this spring, he really reminds me of an Alec Boehm type, at least early in his career, whereas Greice has that swing and miss, but it's left-handed, big power, he's really athletic, and he's also young too. And then I'll just mention two more guys in Arizona's duo of Jacob Berry and Daniel Susak. Two guys that are draft eligible in 2022. Berry, for the most part of the season, was hitting over 400, just doubles, triples, singles, just the machine in terms of batted ball contact, whereas Susak is a little bit more of that traditional well-rounded draft profile of the big league catcher with the big arm. He's got power and he hits the ball hard. So those are just some names that I've noticed throughout the year, and I'll kick it over to you with who you got.
I'll start with the duo of my own with Tre Morgan and Dylan Cruz at LSU. Cruz gets a lot of the hype with, 13 home runs, has 14 doubles, hitting almost 350 on the year, 3 less walks and strikeouts. He's doing things at the SEC that you shouldn't really do, even as a junior, as a true freshman. I think he's only made 2 errors in the outfield all year. We knew how good he was coming out. Could have been a first-round prep pick last year, depending on who you ask when they saw him. Now he's proving hey, I'm that good. But then lost in it almost somehow is Tre Morgan, who's a Gold Glove type first baseman already, hitting 370 on the year, 15 doubles, left-handed bat to ball, everything you want is there. And they have those two at the top of their order. And the other name is Ethan Long at Arizona State.
Hottest hitter in the country.
16 home runs already on the year. I think they all came in the last week. It's just, time to log on to Twitter. Here's 2 more here. He walked it off. And we knew he had that big bat speed. We knew he had the big raw power. Now it's playing in game. You had mentioned how prior he was closing, and that kind of went away when the home runs started coming. So, he's also hitting for average, 350 or something. He's doing big-time things as a true freshman. And once he's started hitting, he just hasn't stopped. So those are a couple I wanted to touch on, and it's going to be fun following them all moving forward for sure.
Yeah, and with that being said, we'll kind of wrap this up. As I said, the conference tournaments start right around Tuesday here for most of the country. Your Power 5 regular season conference winners in the ACC, Notre Dame, the Big 12, Texas, the Big 10, Nebraska, the SEC, Arkansas, and the Pac-12, Arizona. So those are kind of the favorites, or at least the 1 seeds heading into conference tournaments. Obviously, the Pac-12 will not be playing a conference tournament, nor will the Big 10. But, we will have coverage at least from the SEC tournament starting Tuesday over in Hoover, Alabama, among some other colleges throughout the week. But for Jeremy Brown, I'm Vinny Servino. Thanks again for joining me, everybody, and we will look forward to seeing you next week.
Take care, guys.